Sorry.
We are live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Parent Involvement Committee meeting for April 13th. I'd like to start by reading our human rights and Indigenous rights statements. If you can just pull the next slide, please. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga people, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nations. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. And the Human Rights and Equity Statement. The Durham District School Board is committed to learning environments that are safe, welcoming, respectful, equitable, accessible, inclusive, and free from discrimination, while placing human rights and equity at the center.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
The Durham District School Board recognizes Indigenous rights are distinct. In the exercise of those rights, Indigenous staff and students shall not be subjected to actions with the aim or effect of depriving these distinct rights.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll move on to tonight's agenda and approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? Is there anything to add to?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were looking for first and second approval.
Sure. If there's nothing else to add or to change, then I'd be looking for approval. That'd be great. We have a seconder. I apologize. I can only see the one person, so I can't see if there is a seconder.
I'll second the motion. It's Frank.
Thanks, Frank. And we'll move on to our agenda. I believe there were some pieces to add tonight. Margaret, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
The agenda, if we have any, do we have any agenda items to add at all to this? I think we included them, the human rights policy, myself and Minno. Any other agenda items that we'd like to add to this meeting?
Yeah, I just had somebody from the community touch base on the possibility of, I guess, a meet and greet with provincial candidates. So we could discuss that at the end if we have time.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, so that's our agenda for the evening.
Perfect.
So we've had that. So just I wanted to give you some DDSB updates. Our human rights policy has been taken to, Devika Mathur, who is the Human Rights and Equity Advisor to our board. She, in the governance committee, that's trustee governance committee, the human rights policy has passed that committee. So we're moving on to the next stage where the policy will be going to the board. That's on Tuesday, the board meeting on Tuesday as a notice of motion. And then in the May board meeting, it will be voted on by the trustees for approval. So we're excited that it's working through the process. And so we're grateful about that. One of the interesting things on the website, if you still want to connect with the policy for our parents on the website, there is a page on the webpage for the human rights policy. There are parent-friendly, easy language that has been, the human rights has been written in parent-friendly language, so parents can access it and can look at it and get themselves ready for the board meeting on Tuesday, and certainly in the May board meeting when the policy is to be voted. So once the policy is approved, I'm excited to tell you that we will be developing additional support materials in the form of forms, brochures, process, flow charts, etc., to support the policy. And once we have all these forms ready, and we are going to make them parent friendly as well, because part of the issue is part of the human rights policy is a complaints process. So we will certainly be bringing that to this table so that we can give feedback on what exactly our parents need to see so that they can really effectively make a complaint should anything arise in their schools. So they'll be coming to this committee to get feedback on what works best for our parents. So that's one of the things, so we're excited. And so by the time we have our next meeting, I'm hoping that the policy will be passed. The other thing I wanted to bring up for us update is on our slurs and epithets. Our director, Marsh, has given us a directive as a board that slurs and epithets are strictly prohibited in our board, that we're not to utter, we're not to write or read, say epithets, and that's a directive to our staff and our students. And currently we're working with our teachers and our principals and managers, all the system about how to implement that policy to make sure that it is adhered to. Because one thing we do what we are as a board is we want to center everything we do in the human rights of all individuals in our board. We know that, we're committed to ensuring that everything that we do is grounded in respect for the inherent dignity and worth of each person. So we're committed to ensuring equal access, opportunity, and outcomes for all students and staff, and a commitment to using equitable support to reduce those gaps and to eliminate barriers. And part of that is to make sure that we do no harm to our staff and our students, and we have a legal obligation with which we have to comply. And so our commitment to removing any systemic barriers that may prevent students, staff, and families from fully enjoying the rights of which we are all, that's a part of all of our essence as human beings. We want to ensure that everyone feels welcome and in our system, and which means that this work is going to be something that we are committed to doing, and we work with our teachers and our staff, as I said, to ensure that no slurs and epithets or pejorative words are to be used in our board. And examples are included, but not limited to the N-word, to pejorative terms used to describe Indigenous peoples, racial, ethnic, religious, sex, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. So words, that pejorative words surrounding all of these different identities are no longer, or they're clear directive is it is not permitted in our board. And so we want parents to know that, so that you're aware of some of the things that we are doing in our board to ensure that the dignity of all of our students is upheld, and that we do no harm, and that we are respecting each individual as having those inherent rights to be safe and not to be discriminated against. You know, and some ask why, because we know that the use of injurious terms harms Indigenous and racialized and minoritized people. The slurs and epithets produce inequities between the targeted and untargeted groups. Uttering and writing or the use of the racial or other slurs or epithets by staff is not permitted. And the staff, we have an obligation as a staff to intervene and respond sensitively if we hear racial or other slurs or epithets uttered and used by anyone in our workplace. And what's most important for all of our staff is our duty bearer responsibilities. When Devika was on here a few months ago, talk about the duty bearer responsibilities that everyone in our institution, in our employ, are required to fulfill. And it's to promote and protect human rights. The best interest of the child is what's important, and do no harm. To prevent discrimination and harm. To respond to and address barriers and issues, and to build capacity and to correct discrimination should it occur. And so we're taking that very seriously, and I just needed to let you know that we are working on that. So should you have any complaints or any issues, on the web page you will find, and I'll see if I can present that. I'm just going to stop sharing. let me see, I'm gonna stop sharing, stop share. See if I can just. We have on the website, the web page that has the human rights, the parent-friendly language for human rights. It has a one page or one and a bit pages of how do I raise a human rights issue or complaint. It's an information sheet for students and families. You can choose one of two ways to report it to us. Tell your teacher or principal or a DDSB employee. You can file a form of complaint. So there's two ways. And a phone call, it always works well. Certainly if you call the superintendent's office, we will certainly facilitate the process for you. We know it can be hard to talk about discrimination and harassment, but we want to tell you that the information is confidential and you don't have to do it alone. You can bring someone for support. An advocate can come with you or to help you work through the process, but we're also there to make sure that your complaint is heard. Reprisal is a violation of the human rights. So a lot of parents will think, well, will my child, will they be targeted after I stand up for them and make a complaint? Reprisal is a violation of the human rights policy, and I think our parents need to know that. So reprisal means threatening or retaliating against someone for raising a human rights issue, complaint, or accommodation request, or for being part of an investigation. And I always hear when parents do call in, will the teacher now hold this against my son, my child, and my daughter? And we want to tell you that that's also human rights, that reprisal is absolutely not on as well. And there's a glossary and the policy. You can click on that when you go on the website. It'll give you more information about the language and defining vocabulary for us. And so that's a page that you can check out. But as I said, once the policy is approved in May, then we're going to make some parent-friendly brochures that our parents can access for information on how to concerns or how to interpret the human rights policy, how to understand it, and also how it will be implemented in the best interest of their students. So that's just a couple of updates that I have for us tonight. And if you have any questions about them, now is the time to ask. Any questions? And I can't see answers, so I'm gonna ask Sarah if you can monitor the raised hands for me, that would be great. Do we have any?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah. Any questions at all?
I don't see any hands. Maybe I missed a hand.
Okay,
No?
perfect. I'm going to stop sharing and put up our PowerPoint again, if I can find it. Okay, I'll do this part for us, Jim. So we had a co-chair, Danielle, and she's not able to, and we mentioned that at our last meeting, she was not able to fulfill a responsibility to this position. She took it very seriously and felt that she could not devote the time necessary to be part of this, this group. So we need to elect a co-chair. So we know that a co-chair must be a parent and it cannot be a staff member. Excuse me. So at this time, we'll like to open nominations for a co-chair, or somebody, if somebody wants to volunteer, that's also perfectly acceptable as well. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see. Okay, so we're looking for a co-chair. I'm going to nominate Uma.
I would like to nominate Ted Foster as well.
Jeff? Ted Foster. Ted Foster. We've got two.
If he accepts.
Ted, so you're amenable to the nomination, Ted?
Sure.
Uma, are you amenable to the nomination? Okay, perfect. Any other nominations? Okay, so we have two candidates for Jonathan. Could you do me a favor? We didn't ask you to do this. Is there any way you could just give us a quick poll with the 2 names?
Yeah, just give me a brief second.
Yeah. Do each of you want to say a couple of words, Uma and Ted, of why we should vote for one or the other? And I'm just checking our bylaws to make sure that our staff can vote. Uma, do you want to say a couple of words?
Well, considering that this is quite last minute, I just like to say that I've had past experience with school councils. I'm presently the secretary of my son's school community council at Da Vinci, and I've held that position in the past. I am an educator in training, but I am not working at the moment. I'm actually homeschooling my youngest, but very much have a passion for being involved in the school community and the community at large. So if I do get the responsibility, I do hope to fulfill it as best as I can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ted?
Wow, I should have went first. This is my last year. I've been involved with the SEC since my daughter in junior kindergarten, all the way up to where she's graduating this year. So I'm always headstrong into helping our parents engage more. So keeping in mind, I would only be on this for a couple months. I don't want that to defer or anything, but I would give it the good old college try. And as you know, our trustee in Pickering here always seems to think that I stir the pot a lot, but I do fight for our parents all the time. So I would love to do it, but if you don't pick me, then that's great too. So.
Okay, thank you. So we have our 2 candidates. John, do you have the poll ready for us? I know that was also last minute. And how would you like us to proceed, John?
Be able to see a screen to choose who you'd like to vote for with the option of to abstain. Margaret, you are co-host, so you'll only see results. No other people can see results but you and I.
Okay, all right.
But Margaret, are staff members allowed to vote?
As I'm looking, I'm just making sure. I have a feeling that probably not. I don't see it in the bylaws. I'm just looking up the bylaws. I've not seen it. I don't see it in the bylaws.
Margaret, I think they can, because I can remember if it wasn't last year, the year before, was actually a co-chair was a DDSB employee. So
Okay. Shouldn't have happened, but nonetheless. So, okay, so we'll all vote for the one that we think. And once again, thank you to both of you for volunteering and wanting to be part of this. We appreciate it. And I'm sure Jim will appreciate the help with the chair.
I would, yes. It'd be great.
And John, you'll tell me when everybody's voted. 8 + 3 is 11, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, everybody's voted. Yeah, look at that. I can count. Great. 8 + 3 is 11. We've all voted. Okay, so Jonathan and I have seen the results, and we can tell you that Uma, you are now co-chair of the committee, and we want to thank both Ted and Uma for at the last minute volunteering to stand for this position. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to put the PowerPoint back up so that it keeps us on track. Okay, so thank you, Uma. And so I'm going to turn it over to both you and Jim to chair the rest of this meeting. And it's just a matter of just calling the agenda items. So why can't I? Why is it not moving? I'm going to stop sharing again. Just give me a second.
Uma, are you okay if I just continue on, or did you want to jump in? It doesn't matter to me.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I'll continue.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. So I can do this one because a parent did call me from the north and wanted to know what the rationale was for School Cash Online, because they're not liking the School Cash Online. So I just wanted to, and I promised her I would bring a discussion at this table with our parents to ask what your experiences are with the School Cash Online, what you think about it, and so I can at least report back to her. And when you've told me what you think, I'll tell you what the board has said about School Cash Online. If I hope I brought it home with you. So parents and administrators on here, what's our thoughts on the School Cash Online? Is it efficient? Does your school use it? Does everybody use it? Do people have an option to not do School Cash Online? If you could, Frank. So I'll leave, I don't see all the hands, so Jim or Uma, if you can monitor the hands for us, that would be great. And I'll leave you guys to chair now. Frank.
Frank.
Thanks, Margaret. This is a sore point. School Cash Online was great until they started charging a per usage percentage and fee. And as a service, it's excellent. It's easy to monitor. It's easy to use. You get a good report. You get everything. But for fundraising, we are losing so much money now in terms of what we have to pay to School Cash Online. And Margaret, I'm sure you know this, but I believe through DISA, so I sit on some of the Durham Elementary Schools Association committees. I believe our board has contracted with the KEV group, which runs School Cash Online, for the next 5 years. So we're a bit stuck. There are other ways to bring in money. There's something that you might once upon a time have been familiar with. Some people call it cash. Nobody uses it anymore. But sometimes if you scrounge around at the bottom of a couch, you can find old things called coins. And when we sell cookies for $1.50, I will not put them on School Cash Online because the cookie costs me, I don't know, 80 cents. And I lose 25 cents to School Cash Online and then end up with 5 cents back for each cookie. Now, I don't care about the money. What I really care about is the kids handling money and interacting with each other and selling the cookies and, you know, getting that experience. But it's as a system, it's exceptionally well organized. As a cost factor, it's becoming more and more expensive. And it doesn't matter if you charge more. So for example, we sell pizza in 9 weekly blocks. School Cash Online charges more as the price increases. There is another way around it using EFTs, electronic fund transfers, but they are a nightmare for the secretary or anyone to track. School Cash Online is charging us for the efficiency that it brings. And I'm completely open to other systems. Now, it just so happens that a friend of mine who actually started Remind, some of you might know the Remind messaging system, sold Remind or left Remind and has started a payment system called Omelas or something like that in the States. And when he told me how much he charges as a percentage of what is brought in, then School Cash Online is still a good deal. But I'm afraid that something that was free or where maybe the board had been absorbing the money that's now being passed down to the schools, and the schools very kindly are passing that on to parents. So we're paying for the convenience and it's costing us a lot in terms of fundraising.
Mm-hmm. I don't see the hands, so Jim or Uma, if you could monitor that for us. Oh, I see Ted.
Okay, I'm next. I agree with Frank, but on the other hand, a couple of things. School Cash Online, I think, is a fabulous thing because it takes the cash out of the schools, which is probably a good thing because in my former life at another board, sometimes money just goes missing. So this is a great opportunity. The secretary doesn't have to collect the caches for field trips when we had them, for all these other things. So I think it's a great tool. It has its place. Frank, I wasn't aware that there was a split, that you could split it between school, because I know there's non-board funds that the school has, like pizza lunches and stuff, and then also the items that the SEC runs, where they would have their, I'm going to say, very back age myself, chocolate bar campaign, those type of things, where it actually goes to the SEC and then it could be distributed to the school. I did bring up this issue with our school recently about the fees, that the fees just seem to appear. Now, when you look online on the DDSB website, there is really nothing that talks about it. Every school has a policy or a form, I think, that was put there. And I agree, the board did absorb the costs per transactions, I think, for the first 5 years of the contract. I agree with Frank totally. I think it's horrendous that they're adding these fees, and they escalate too. And I guess the big question would come to where does that money go? Is that going back into Kev's pocket? Is that going into the DDSB? It appears to certainly not go to the schools or to the SEC. But I think if we want to call a fumble here, would be that we never, at least as a parent, this was my big thing. I never heard about this until it was time to pay, in my case, for some grad stuff. And we were told it was $25, and all of a sudden it was 26 and a quarter. So I asked our principal, I said, what's the $1 and a quarter for? And it was, nobody seems to know. And when I talked to Aaron, our superintendent, the same thing, it's not very clear. And, if we have to pay a fee, I would plead the board to absorb it some way, shape, or form, or at least minimize the cost to the parents, or also stop using it. And then Frank and James are going to get back into having to collect cash in the school. And we want to get away from that. That was a great thing. But the big question is, where was the communication to our parents to say, oh, by the way, you're now going to start to see fees charged to this. And then if we must have the fees, then as a parent, I said, I don't like it, but okay. But on the other hand, you should have told us that it was coming. So that's my nickel, because there's no sense anymore on this. And I still think it's a fabulous tool. And I know Kev deals with a lot of school boards, so that's how they can, make the cost not as high as Frank mentioned at other company. But still, the board should be going back, or at least somebody at the board level. And I'm not talking Scott's board level. I mean talking administration to Nora. Like, why are we footing this cost now?
So you do know that this committee can make recommendations to the board. That's one of your functions as a PIC. It's not just to do all these, not simply to run events and programs for our parents, which is 100% the most important part of this committee, is to enhance the parent engagement. But one of the functions of this committee is to make recommendations or to alert the board of issues that are concerning to parents. And so we may want to come out of this with something that we take to, I guess, the team that I sit on, and eventually, of course, to our trustees. Frank.
Thanks, Margaret. Ted, thank you very much. I just want to share, some information that I have. The board, at least the answers that DISA got, was that this was looked at and other options were considered, and this is the better of two or the best of three or more. I like what Margaret's saying. I think at the very least, if it's the will of the parents, this can be questioned. But from what I understand, the board is committed to the KEV group for at least the length of this contract. Maybe the board should be reminded that you know, something like this that is touching all parents should possibly be communicated with the parents. And there again, I'm out of my depth. I don't know that the board's under any obligation to do that. I just think it would be, it would be wise. The other thing is that the KEV group does more than School Cash Online. So it's a huge sort of octopus-like organization, and this is one of their things. But as I say, I'm completely in the market for other options. You'll be pleased to know I sold the big safe that we had in the school because we just didn't need to keep cash anymore. And now I've got a tiny safe in which I now have to shove all the 25-cent pieces from the cookie sales. So I'm not keen on going back to collecting cash. We're just a little bit stuck at the moment.
Jim?
I was just going to agree with you, Margaret, maybe, and sorry, we should maybe send it back with the questions and just see if we can find out how long are they really contractually obliged to do this, how much are the fees, and like Frank was saying, have they already assessed if this is the best option? And then once we have all that information.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Frank. Either you have to go into your mic. I mean, not Frank,
Sorry.
Jim, sorry.
Sorry. So just say if we send the question back for more information, then we can get all the proper information, and then we can reassess from there. Like you said, maybe this is the best option, unfortunately, of 2 or 3, but we should probably get that information first.
Okay. Ted?
Yeah, just so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot too, changing a massive software after implementing over 5+ years would be a huge change management thing to go through for parents. And I think, Margaret, you have it right that the parents should be a little more vocal on this, because it was all about getting us on board to do this. It was always you engage the parents to get them to do this, go on this to stop the money from coming into the school. And if we say that we don't like this system, it's going to be something similar. And I would not want to be dealing with the change management aspect at the school level to say, okay, now you got to, maybe change your SIS system. Maybe you change your accounting pay. I mean, our staff are hit with a lot of things. But yes, this is something we definitely need to go to the board. And I believe this is, if I did my math in my head correctly, this started with my daughter was in grade 7. So this is, I think it was a 5-year term, and now they've just renegotiated for another 5 years. But I would scream to them about, why is this costing money now? Is there no way there's some, where this could be absorbed at the board? And I mean, and that could be at Scott's level where they could let's just take it somewhere to make our parents happy, because I'm sure there are a lot of parents have complained about the cost, and if they don't want to, and God help it if they find out that it goes to KEV, right? then we could be back to collecting money at schools. I'd hate to say that, but
sorry to jump in, Margaret. Ted made a very good point. I know Gerlene's hands up, but it's something directly to Ted. The advantage of KEV is that it ties in with Power School, which is the system, the school information system that we all use. So whatever we use would have to tie into Power School too, and that's it.
Gerlene?
I don't know if I missed this, but I was just wondering if, while we're looking at other option, is there a way to find out what other school boards are using around, like what is effective, what's working? That would help our research much better, because we know that these are implemented already.
Okay.
Margaret, I can answer that. I know the Toronto District School Board is using KEV. I know the Toronto Catholic School Board is using KEV. I believe York Region is using it. So they're all throughout Ontario. And they have a footprint in the US as well. So they do have an accounting software as well. So, I mean, I've met actually the two ladies that started this company, and they were both former school admins. So they knew the pain, and this is where they developed it. So I'm not sure we'd get a better tool, but it should, I guess from my point, the cost is too much right now, especially the parents are now seeing the cost.
Okay, thank you for that, Gerlene. Scott.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that what you should do, or what I would do when I was a parent, I would actually come up with a good plan and do a presentation to the board. That's the only way anybody's going to hear it on the board, unless we get emails, and then I share it with trustees and staff, and sometimes we don't get the same message across because it's a live meeting. Whether you're in person or virtual, your message comes across a lot clearer, and because it's coming from parents, it is that much more
Powerful.
I'm looking for powerful.
Powerful. I know, because as a superintendent, when parents call me, I got to get hopping and make sure that I solve that problem for sure, right? And especially when trustees call me and tell me a parent called them.
Yeah. Now, I really believe that this is something where you have your co-chairs come up and do a presentation on this whole subject, and we get as much information as we can. And by listening to Frank and Ted, they have oodles of information that they could share with people. So
perfect. So we can work on that. I know that the action, we want to certainly want more information, and we want to know where the fees are going. I heard that we want to know where the fees are going, so we have to look into that. We want to know what other boards are doing, and I think we found out that most boards are using KEP, but we can drill down on that because that will be asked. And I did put down presentation to the board, Scott, because we know that Scott and his Trustee Templeton and his colleagues, they do listen to parents a lot. And then we want to know, and we recognize changing a massive software may be a huge undertaking. And it doesn't necessarily mean we have to change the software, but we want to reduce these fees. We want to see if it can be absorbed somehow, or if we can negotiate with KEF to reduce them. But I think we need to find out where it's going, and because that's going to be key to what we're doing next. And then we can negotiate from a position of strength if we find out exactly what's happening to the 20% and possibly 30% of the profits that are being whittled away somewhere that nobody seems to know where it's going. So we will look into that for us. Now, who would like to work with me to look into that? And it's preferably a parent, because that's this is a parent engagement committee to look into this for us. Anybody volunteers? Do I have to volunteer somebody?
Oh no, I'll do it. I mean, because Scott, I sent Chris
Perfect.
Brainy a note on this too. So.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah. Anyway, he seems to think I stir the pot. So, but I just think that it's a good thing. And Margaret, I know that the GTA boards have a KEV committee, and I know that they all at some point in time got together to talk about going to KEV to talk about the fees, or not the fees, but more or less the dollars, because depending on the volume you put through, it generates how much the licensing fees are. So I know that there is a group like that, so we could touch base with staff at DDSB and find out who sits on that. And I don't mind poking around some of my old colleagues. Yep. So
we'll touch base after the long weekend, and then we'll get our plan together so we can get all the information that we can bring back to this committee. And then if we have to write a report, the report has to go through admin council, that's the superintendents and system leaders, goes through them first, and then it goes to the trustees. And it's not necessarily to say disband it, but because we recognize that it does serve a purpose for our schools today, because I do know how money goes missing. I remember fundraising as a principal, and the child handed in the envelope that should have had $400 in it. And when we opened the envelope, there was no $400 in it, but she swore that she put $400 in it. So anyway, so we do know money goes missing. So this really is a good way to eliminate those kinds of situations. Frank, and we're going to wrap this to a close as we have other things that we need to look at tonight.
Thanks, Margaret, and I'll be brief. I did suggest that the board looks at PayPal, and I've spoken to a few of my friends in private schools. PayPal will give you a deal depending on the amount of money and the frequency that transactions are put through. The question, though, is whether PayPal will talk to PowerSchool.
Okay. So I think what we need to do, Ted, then is to look at some other systems, because to offer an option, but I hear that we are locked in for 5 years and we've just increased it. And I did email the board off Wendy, I forget Wendy's last name, she works in finance, and she gave me all the good things about the Catch Online, all the positives, which is great. But certainly we want to look into this, do a deeper dive to make sure that our parents are not being taken advantage of, I guess is what I want to say. All right, so we'll connect, Ted, after the long weekend, and then we'll get our plan together on what we really need to drill down on, what we need to look at, and the information we want to bring back to this committee on May the 11th, and then we can proceed. And it may not get there this year, but certainly we'll look to certainly starting that. It would be nice if we could do it this year, but as Frank said, it's locked in for 5 years. And contracts are contracts. All righty, so thank you for that. That's good. I'm going to share back my screen. Okay. Okay, so Uma and Jim. Why can't I advance this? It's not advancing.
Yeah, we still see the school Catch Online.
I know. I'm just going to start from this again. I don't know what's happened. Oh, my mouse is working. Sure. Okay. So the human rights policy, I think we've discussed that. So we can move on with that. To make it accessible to parents are the forms and brochures that we will be creating once it has been voted on, if it's approved, that we'll be making to make it more accessible to parents so they know what their rights are. And there's also a piece on student rights as well that our parents need to be aware of. So we've discussed that already, I think. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh. Alrighty, so this is our subcommittee updates. So I'll turn it over again.
Perfect. So I guess we'll move on, and we're going to hope to have somebody who will speak from the PIC newsletter team. I don't see a hand, or is there anybody?
So I can speak. We want to send out our newsletter towards the end of April, early spring. And what we did say is next year we want to have our date set so that it comes out at a set time in the year so people can anticipate and look forward to hearing it. We talked about several things that we are going to include in the article. Manon, if you have that information, I don't have it offhand. Do you have that information that you could just let us know the articles that we will be including in this upcoming newsletter? Do you have that information?
We will add on it part of the newsletter, the programs, updates on the programs, what's upcoming events that the schools and the groups are offering. And we will discuss about what to do with your children as a family to go outside, play outside, go for walks, discover nature in its spring, right? So we need to see a little bit more. And part of the newsletter also, like, we're going to promote the next Parents Engagement Series, our keynote speaker. That's Dr. John Duffy. And also we will promote the Parents as Partners for now it's Durham Partners Conference that it's going to be by May 17th. So we're going to promote what's happening, what's upcoming events for the PIC and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody think there's anything else that we need to include in the newsletter that parents might want to be interested in about, that might want to know about? Anything else as we get this? Oh, we're also going to do grade 9 de-streaming to demystify that for our parents. The why behind the grade 9 de-streaming. We think it's important for parents to understand how students have been marginalized and been disadvantaged by the streaming of our grade of all courses, to be honest with you, but certainly grade 9, because in grade 9 it sets you on the path for the rest of your high school. This is why grade 9 has been targeted this year. In our board too, we are looking at grade 10, but certainly if a school wants to de-stream grade 10, certainly they have to get the permission of the superintendent and of course of curriculum. And but it will be allowed if schools want to de-stream some subjects in grade 10. But so we're going to provide information in the newsletter about de-streaming, the whys behind it, and the importance of that action and that directive from the ministry. All right.
And I believe the program application team was missing from the screen you have, Margaret. So
Yes.
I think Sarah was good to speak to that.
Okay, Sarah.
That's a pretty good segue because I was going to also include a little piece in the newsletter about pro-grant applications and the updates around that. So I'd first like to start with thanking the pro-grant team for working together and organizing the past event where parents and staff members were live and we were explaining how to write a pro-grant proposal. So thank you, Gerline, Carolyn, Jim, Patrick, and Danielle, who is no longer part of the committee, but worked hard to speak to parents and staff members and share ideas around writing pro-grants. So the updates are pretty short. First and foremost, all the results have been communicated, and the pro-grant committee got together and we decided on which grants would go forward and which grants would not. And that those results have been communicated either verbally or by email to all participants. The project completion date is Friday, June 10th. So all projects should be wrapped up to have taken place. And then also the results should be communicated to the pro-grant committee and then summarized in a final report, which will be submitted to the Ministry of Education on Friday, June 17th. So I'd also like to thank Margaret Lazarus and Manon Laplante for their hard work as well, because they do a lot of work in the background, and we're very appreciative of that as well.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So let's move on to the Parent Engagement Series. Who would like to speak to that?
I can talk a little bit about, I know the last time we met, we did talk about some of things that might be of interest for our parents. And based on what we got from our school, the Parents in Prevention for the Sex Trafficking, there's information going out to all our parents about that, at least at the school levels, because I know the events are held on a monthly basis with this organization. We also talked about, and I had some experience with this, about anxiety with our students, and parents really don't, there was times I was just, my jaw just dropped. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I'm so stoked to see that we're having someone in to help our parents with this. We talk about all these other things, but then when it comes to anxiety and depression, it's we're just not just parents, but some of us don't have those tools, and this is an excellent thing to and hopefully we continue to do it on an ongoing basis, maybe in the fall at some time, because summer has a tendency to shake all our brains up and we forget these things. And the last thing we talked about, and I think Margaret and I talked about maybe this would be for next year, is basically like an SEC 101, just to help our parents understand what SEC does. So it's not a forbidden thing, because a lot of times, you say who wants to chair, who wants to do this, and nobody, everyone's doing this. So we want to make it easy, and just so they understand that it's not it's a fabulous thing to get involved with your child's education. So I think that's about it. And I think, Margaret, we talked about maybe doing something for that next year. So, and even though I'm graduating this year, I'd be more, if you're still around, I'd be more than happy to assist in some shape, way, or form. So
sounds good.
Okay.
We'll consult with you, Ted. and as you say that, with just going back to the pro grants, I did do a presentation at our admin council. That's with the superintendents, and talked about the success, certainly the pro grants. And one of the recommendations that we were given from our senior team is to meet with our schools are identified as priority schools, the schools generally in the low SES areas, because we tend not to have a lot of projects from them, and to meet with them and to help them fill out, to talk with those schools particularly about how to fill out a project, what kinds of projects, and to help them the process to go through the forms, to help the parents complete those forms, and just to make it accessible to all. So we've got to keep that at top of mind for next year as well with the programs.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Ted and Margaret. So let's move on to our last category. So it's the Durham Partners, or Parents as Partners team. Could someone speak to that, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. I can speak to that. I want to start off just like Sarah and everyone has, by thanking the fantastic and incredible team that we have who's helping put together this conference. You'll note that the name of the subcommittee has changed from Parents as Partners to Durham Partners, with the idea that this is more inclusive, as we have more than just parents as partners. We have guardians, we have caregivers who are not technically defined as parents. And so the team that was meeting was wanting to move forward with a change of name that's more reflective of inclusion, which again is one of the core elements of the board's strategic plan. I did want to check with Margaret and with Menal, because there was talk about a vote, but do we need to do a vote on this?
So let's just talk about that. What's our thinking of going from Parents as Partners to Durham Parents? Durham Partners. What's the will of this group? What are you thinking about that? That was the recommendation coming from that group of that subcommittee. Any thoughts? And just want to make sure everybody has input on that.
Absolutely. And I can speak briefly, but I mean, Jim has been on our meetings, Menal has been there, as well as Frank. But the thought was very much that given the fact that we are trying to center human rights and we're trying to center Indigenous rights, it is often recognized that some of the language that we use can be exclusionary. And the fact that the words partners not being exclusionary, but parents themselves can have a bit of a narrow definition. And the idea is, if we're trying to be inclusive of all guardian, caregiver, parent types, to limit it just to parents would not be truly promoting that we're trying to connect with as many communities within the Durham District School Board community as we possibly can. So just brief bit of the conversation that we had, greater inclusion, greater recognition that this is honoring my lived reality as a caregiver, as a guardian. It's just not a conference for parents. It's increasingly inclusive. Again, my couple of cents. I'm going to throw this over to other members of the team. Jim, you've got your hand up. So
I just wanted to agree with you, James. I was there for a lot of the conversation, and it was done with honesty and to make everything more inclusive. And I support it myself, but I'm not sure if we want to put that to a vote or hands raised, or I'm not sure, Margaret, what that would entail.
We couldn't. Any further discussion about that? I see a hand, Ted.
Yeah, Margaret, I'm not sure we actually need it, but because I can remember when our parent engagement was called regional SEC, and I think it was just a recommendation that came to PIC to say this sounds a lot better, and everyone just like nodded their head. I don't think we voted. I think it just changed. So I would be fully supportive of the name change. I mean, it's just a step in, as James says, into making it what it is, and not just parents. So I would support it.
So that's the will of this table, with a nod at the head as Ted suggested. Parfait, c'est bon. Okay, so great. So you didn't finish, James?
I didn't, sorry, Margaret, and you know, and I appreciate your patience because I tend to be a little verbose, but we did meet with the promotion subcommittees just actually before this meeting. It was supposed to be an hour before, and it turned out about, we worked right up to about 10 minutes before, but we're currently finalizing our flyer. Our registration form, which is going to be done via Zoom, which again, thanks to John Rennie, who's on this call. John, we really, really appreciate your help with that. And we're also looking at crafting a small website, again, with a promotional start of Tuesday, the 19th of April. So that's when it's going to go out to schools, go out via communications. We're looking at leveraging Facebook, Instagram, etc., as well as all of the normal board websites, administrator communications, school messenger, etc. Just to give the team a review, just so you've got a picture of what the conference is going to look like, as opposed to other years where we've had a keynote speaker who would take the time, converse in regards to, in this case, the theme is building positive relationships. Instead of having a single speaker, we are actually highlighting and shamelessly flaunting the talent that we have at the Durham District School Board, which includes representatives from Inclusive Student Services, Indigenous Education, Positive School Climate, and Equity and Inclusion. The format is actually going to be, and we're actually involving student voice and talent in this as well, because the opening is going to involve a highlight of student artists, visual artists, where their creations that were done for Art's Sake, which is coordinated by the Robert McLaughlin Gallery in partnership with the Durham District School Board. Peter Arnott is the facilitator on that. For Art's Sake was a presentation of artistic works by students, but just seeing pictures on a screen is not the most engaging thing. So Peter is connecting with music programs across the Durham District School Board to provide music that will be played over top of the images that are being shown. So that's in the pre-show. Then we have greetings, of course, from Margaret. Thank you very much for doing that. From one of our trustee representatives, which we understand there's a conversation going on in firming that up, from our director, from Jim, big thanks to Jim, and from our student Senate members who will be doing a welcoming video. Then we'll move into the panel presentation with the four departments that we mentioned, who will be speaking to 3 to 4 questions from the perspective of Inclusive Student Services and Mental Health, Indigenous Education, Positive School Climate, and Equity and Inclusion. How can parents, guardians, caregivers be supported in building positive relationships for their students and for supporting their students when they're at school? We will then have community partners being highlighted after that panel presentation, which will take about an hour. And then we're going to go into breakout sessions, and we've got a number of breakout sessions. Each of the panel presenters is going to host a breakout session, so participants can actually say, hey, you know, I'd really like to go deeper with Inclusive Student Services on developing mental health supportive relationships. So they'll be able to go in with Stephanie Pellebor, who's our mental health lead, and Connor Jenkinson to be able to go deeper on that. So our breakouts include Be Me, the Black Excellence Made Evident group, which is formed from a number of our support workers, social workers and psychologists. Am I getting that right, Margaret? I think I'm getting that right. Okay. As well as our Positive School Climate, Holly Richard is going to talk to parenting in the age of social media. Dan Hogan is going to speak to digital parenting, smartphones, social norms, and the teen brain. Our Equity and Inclusion group with Meryl Matthews and Camille Ali is going to speak to positive relationships, Chris Anderson from Innovative Technology is going to speak to digital footprint awareness. And Nicole Dolaby from Student Success and her Choosing My Success transition coordinators are going to speak to the relationship and support that needs to be developed for students who are making that big transition from elementary school to secondary school. So a lot of fantastic breakout sessions. Unfortunately, only one breakout session can be had at this time. I'm sure the feedback we will get will be, I wish it could have gone to more. We'll then do a closing within the breakout sessions. We have an exit ticket to get response and to get data back from the participants in terms of what was great, what was extra great, what was extremely great. And then we can use that to build forward to future Durham Partners conferences. I should mention there is a huge spin and change this year, and I have to give a lot of credit to Frank Samuels for helping to champion this and move it forward, which is not only will parents and guardians and caregivers who are participating be able to avail themselves of the incredible knowledge that the Durham District School Board has to offer, but they will also be fed. So we have a pizza incentive, and huge thanks to Margaret for trusting us and funding us in this one. Each family is going to have pizza delivered to them the night of the conference at the same time as the conference begins. So it's not only incentive to participate, but it's also in recognition of the fact that we value their time so much. We're requesting 2 hours of their time to bring this to them. Well, the least we can do is to try and give back to them by freeing up their dinner preparation time, their dinner serving time, by providing them with dinner. The options that we have lined out for them, again, with thanks to Frank and with Pizza, cheese, which also has a halal option, pepperoni, vegetarian, and then we realize that the cheese may not be true halal. We've connected with our communities and understand that we may not have participation because the cheese may not be halal. So we're also including a halal option, and of course a thanks but no thanks, I really don't need pizza option, which I don't know how many people are going to grab onto. So a lot of fantastic things happening with this, really been reimagined for a virtual platform. It's not in person. And yeah, I think I've covered all of this. Again, huge thanks to the team for helping to craft this. It has really been a massive team effort. And I'm looking to the team members that are here, Jim, Frank, etc. Manal, is there anything, and Margaret's been at every meeting we've had. So, I mean, Margaret's, because she's putting up a lot of money for this, has put a lot of faith in us on this. So we're really thrilled and we're really excited, as you can tell, with what's going to happen. I think that's it. Any questions? Sorry, battling on.
Could you, I've got a question. Could you just refresh our memory of the theme for the evening so that we know how we're pulling all of this together?
Absolutely. So the theme for the evening is building positive relationships. The original concept was around the fact that, again, we've had students who have been online, who have not been interacting in social settings for a long, long time. And a number of my colleagues, not only administrators, but teacher colleagues, have noticed that students' abilities to interact socially in a positive way or in a negative way and then be able to resolve those conflicts is lacking. And so to be able to support this as a true team where everybody's wearing the t-shirt that says we're here for you, we are giving the parents, the guardians, and the caregivers the tools to be able to support their kids as they enter into these social interactions.
Perfect. Thank you very much, James. Now, just to clarify, I have my one point I wanted to add to the agenda. I don't have the updated agenda in front of me. Margaret, was there anything else that we have missed?
No, I think we've got everything. I'll just share it again. Just give me a second. I hope it will move this time.
My question will be very quick. So,
I don't know what happens every time I put it up. It's not moving. So I can tell you, I've got it on my iPad. So the next part of our agenda is, give me a second to get into. The next part of the agenda is,
I think it's questions and action points.
yeah, questions and action points. Thank you.
all right, so just real quick, then my one point was I had somebody from the community reach out and asked about the possibility of us partnering or holding some form of a question and answer or community town hall from provincial election candidates about education. So obviously something nonpartisan. I said I could bring it to this committee, and with this committee's blessing, I would look in to see, maybe with UMA, to see what that would entail. What would we be responsible for? Could we actually make that work? What are people's thoughts on that? Because we are getting close to an election.
So I guess my question, oh, Frank, sorry.
So I don't want to keep jumping in. I'm just sharing my past experience. When I have tried to bring in any form of an elected official into the school, I've been told that that's a flat no. Not even a mayor. Like anyone who runs for an election, at least in my experience, has not been allowed into a school. Margaret, you'll correct me on that, but I mean, I love the idea. I don't know if we'd get the blessing of the board to move ahead with it.
James?
Thanks.
Oh,
I would agree
taking
with
over.
Frank. I think the only elected official we're able to have into a school is a trustee, because they are an elected official. Jim, I remember similar things happening at various schools where, hey, could we have a candidate come in and speak to a civics class in regards to, because civics is how the political machine works within the province and within the country. But to have a candidate come in, you needed to have all candidates, and there was an equity of voice situation that does come up. I think it becomes far more complicated. And again, like Frank, I know it's been tried, but I don't think it's ever succeeded because of, are we being truly equitable? Are all candidates being represented? Again, just the 2 cents that I've experienced that I've had.
I guess that is an issue too, because there may be some fringe candidates that may not align with some parents' beliefs and things. So perfect. So I think that we'll stand with that is probably a no then.
We have Uma that's got her hand up. You're muted.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry. The only thing I was thinking is maybe taking it in the direction of trying to increase voter engagement. So is that what this person is trying to suggest? That because that's the only way I could see it being, like putting it on a positive spin, that if parents have always hesitated, or maybe have hesitated in the past to go out and vote, or even to educate themselves, this might be an arena that we could address that issue. Jim, is that something?
That was, yeah, that you're correct. That was basically it. There's a lot of noise at election time, and they wanted to have parents come out and really concentrate on what's important relating to education. So that was my proposal, that we could sort of look at it and see if it is possible to do something, or partner with somebody to do something outside of the school to help the engagement. But obviously it's up to the committee if that would happen or not, or if we could start looking into that.
So typically we try not to get involved in politics at all, because it's alienating, and I'm always wary of politicians. They can come in and say they're going to talk about this, and then they talk about something else. And I'm going to be aware of that, and we can't be seen to be taking sides. And we've got to make sure that we remain neutral as a body representing the board. I mean, in our personal lives, we've all got our leanings and we can do whatever, but once we are working and representing the Durham District School Board, which is what we are, we have to be very careful of alliances with politicians. As was rightly said, trustees are the only the official people that do, politicians, if I can just put that in closely in quotes, that represent our board and that we are to invite to our graduations or whatever events. Certainly trustees, we usually tend not to invite politicians, because it's just not it's alienating and it's polarizing, and we don't want our schools to be those kinds of things. And of course, then we have to, as adults, lead by example.
Perfect. So what I will do is I will respond that at this time, that's probably not the route we're looking to go leading into the selection.
Right.
Perfect. That's a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great. So this is our agenda for tonight. So we're buying back about 20 minutes. So just less than 20 minutes, 18 minutes tonight. But it would be remiss of me to, I see Ted's hand is up. So I'll say what I was going to say after. Ted.
Sorry, I figured we were wrapping up shortly. And I've always been of when there's good things to tell, congratulations, especially from the parent community, to the board for the how they handled the bell time consultation was incredible. So, I mean, I've never seen so much information that's gone out to talk about this, and the discussions that it did ensue was incredible. And I'll put a big thumbs up for the secondary panel to say thank you for still considering 10-4, because that seems to have worked well over these years. And I get the busing thing, so, but that whole thing worked very well. And maybe this too, because I know I bothered Scott about this as well. A huge thank you from all the grade 12 parents. The fact that we're able to have grad this year, which is I can't tell you how excited all the kids are, the students are. They're so looking forward to it, and fingers crossed that things stay okay. And again, for the nod for. They're not actually calling it a prom, they're calling it a semi-formal prom, which is, very, very good that we're headed that way too. So just a huge thank you to the board and to Scott, to all your colleagues there for the supporting having, things back to normal for our graduates this year. I'm sure they'll never forget it. So again, appreciation to everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, and thank you, Frank, because that's what I was going to say. It would be remiss of me to end this meeting without congratulating Sarah. Where is she?
Hi,
oh, there you are, Sarah, right in the middle of my screen. So congratulate Sarah Katab. She has just been promoted to vice principal, and she's going to be vice principal at Donald A. Wilson. And this was a coup for us because she is amazing. She's organized. She's go-getter. She's has initiative. And could you tell that I kind of asked and sort of said, hey, I'd like to have her at my school. And plus, elle parle français. Et c'est une école d'immersion. So she speaks French, and it's a French immersion school. So it's just a real treat for us to get Sarah at Donald A. Wilson, although we're going through a boundary change right now. But it's just so congratulations, Sarah. It's well deserving. From the little I've seen of you in this last several months, it is well deserving. And I know James, once she gets her feet wet in there, you'll be saying to me, thank you, Margaret, thank you for sending it. So congratulations, Sarah.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to, actually, for those of you who don't know, James Klodnicki is the principal of Donald A. Wilson. So we're going to be a good team. Thank you so much. I appreciate you recommending me to that school. And it was a very pleasant surprise. So I'm very grateful. Thank you. And you made me blush with all the nice compliments.
Oh,
thanks.
Margaret doesn't speak if it's not truth. So it's truth. So I want to thank everybody, and thank you to Uma and Jim for chairing. And our next meeting, it'll be just you two doing it. And you guys are going to increase and I will decrease. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you so much for coming, and have a good rest of the evening. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night, all.